And we were given like hairnets and like jackets and everything. So we ended up kind of emerging on the rooftop like these crazy scientist people.
How are you doing? What are you up to right now?
I am in Portland, Oregon. I am working on a bunch of new projects, a bunch of canceled projects. It's been a wild world since we're running around on rooftops in Winnipeg. But yeah, working on some more virtual stuff, still thinking on light capsules, still fascinated with ghost signs and, uh, excited to kind of push the project forward.
Was Winnipeg even on your map before Matt Cohen reached out to you about the Painted in Light project?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, Winnipeg within this small, passionate, I guess somewhat large, but passionate group of ghost sign enthusiasts. I know there's a few places that are considered pretty legendary as far as how many ghost signs there are. There's a lot around London. There's a lot in Butte, Montana, places in Colorado, but then Winnipeg is kind of known as this place that has so many ghost signs in such a dense, small area. So I knew about it, and then I met through Matt, saw his website, and was actually following along before he had reached out. So I knew that match was just like, yes, I have to be here. I have to visit and do it big.
So we only see a fraction of the projection evening in the documentary. Let's talk about
Yeah.
kind of the landing in Winnipeg and then kind of the rollout of what happened there.
Yeah, definitely. I know when we were talking about the planning, first of all, this was the first big series I did following the Adobe Creative Residency. So I think it really, for me personally, was a signifier or an affirmation that the project wasn't just some Adobe funded project that I would never continue on with. The funding ends and the project's over. So this was actually, Winnipeg was a very big success for me as far as something that's like, oh, someone else reached out, like this is going to continue on beyond this one dream year, kind of making the passion project happen. I relied on Matt's knowledge as far as which would be good candidates. We honed in on a list of still a few dozen and figured out a map that could be walkable, where would be rooftops we would project from, getting the okays. Like, so much of that was just this really fun kind of planning exercise, looking on Google Maps and Google Earth to kind of like see, where people could feasibly walk, where we could feasibly walk. In the documentary, you do a great job of like showing kind of the chaos of like, okay, sun's going down. We have to go like location to actually make sure everything's dialed and mapped. So you told that story super well.
A couple times in the doc, and these are little kind of Easter eggs that we included in the visuals because I knew that it'd be important to, like, specifically you and Matt. There's a couple shots where everybody's wearing hairnets on a roof, and
Yes.
so can you explain why that was?
Yeah, it's really funny. That building is a candy factory and has been for many, many years. But prior to that was where the SX ham, like that whole ham ad was. But in order to get to the roof, it's an active candy factory. So we had to walk in, and then we were given like hairnets and like jackets and everything. So we ended up kind of emerging on the rooftop like these crazy scientist people, as we were looking around. But we were also like so like determined on the end goal in mind of like, we have to, this is projection and stuff, that I think it was like, in seeing the documentary, it's so funny to me. But in the moment, I think we were so serious about it. But being so serious while having these like powerful hairnets on and everything, it was pretty wild. But
Did anything surprise you about the reaction in Winnipeg, in particular, to the projections?
I remember timing wise, we planned it really well where we had, I don't know if it was specifically an art walk, but I know there was like another festival going on nearby. Location wise, I think it was really great. It pulled a lot of people out. I remember standing on a roof when we were doing the last projection up there. People that had gathered to see the SX ham can sign was like just a crowd of at least 100 people there. Like, I think that's what blew me away was the numbers, because usually when I do these, it doesn't pull that massive of a crowd. There might be like anywhere between like a dozen to maybe a couple dozen, depending on the installation. Like, the whole idea of this project was to do it in a way that you walk by this wall all the time. and all of a sudden it's different one night and there's something else going on, and you think like, did they repaint that? Like, what are my eyes seeing right now? Because if it's mapped properly, you shouldn't think it's a projection. You just think of it as light being used as paint, and it's slowly changing. It's showing these different layers in time. And there was a few of those, and it was really fascinating to see people that were just so excited about like, this old ad here. It's like, oh, I see this all the time. It's so cool to see this. And then again, those conversations start peppering up where you're talking about it. You're talking about your own history in this area. It starts to make you kind of reflect on, oh, I've been here for X amount of years, or I'm so glad that they designated this as a historical area because otherwise all this would be gone, or reflect on other areas that have since been destroyed or have been redeveloped. So I think that spark of conversation is what I really love. But man, looking over the edge of that candy factory rooftop and then seeing this crowd of people, and we had like a light on because we were checking the projection, and there was just like a cheer and cheering back down at them, which is in the doc, I believe. Is just like this wild cheer where I was just beside myself that people were so excited about this like nerdy art history project, basically. So that was really affirming and gratifying to hear.
Yeah, that was a great moment. Will there be more light capsules?
Yes, of course. There's many different ways I'm trying to think of how to push or continue with light capsules. I'm also at this moment very considerate of shelter-in-place orders and the fact that we have a global pandemic going on. So there's a lot of those logistics to kind of like waiting. Again, these ghost signs have been around for well over 100 years, so I'm not in a rush to do it tomorrow. But I do have a ton of these mapped out. I have a dozen in New York that I've been wanting to do like a proper New York City takeover. And there's an absolutely beautiful one in Vancouver. There is, just so many of these multitudes of ones that I'd like to physically go do. Even in Portland here, I'm thinking of ways I can set up a projection and then have people literally like a drive-through will drive by and can see this thing without kind of congregating and trying to keep it safe. Like, what are ways that we can still consume art in this safely in this new world? But also AR is something I've been working on since I was a resident. Using like phone AR is something I've been wanting to do. So the idea is that creating an app where you actually can revisit all of the previous light capsules and then create it as a platform for new ones. So I can actually deploy them remotely. You could, by using your location, be near a sign, get a notification, and then look through the lens of your phone and see an animation play over that actual ad.
Sweet. And where can people see more of your work online?
You can see more of my work on my website, which I am due to redesign. As always, as any creative is, it's like, I got to redo my website, right?
Yeah.
But just craigwinslow.com. And then like Instagram is at Craig Winslow, Twitter, all those things are just at Craig Winslow. So it makes it easy. Continually kind of documenting as far as the next steps for light capsules and documenting the, Tim Burton project. And there's a lot of projects I've done the past couple of years that I'll be sharing up there. But, we're planning a big update to Brilliant, which is the project I have at the Neon Museum. So that's where you can follow me, is at Craig Winslow.
Amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
I don't. I mean, I'm just so thankful that, you were there to document that project in the way that you did. Because again, documentation is such a powerful thing for any sort of project that you work on. And it's honestly like one of the best documentations I've seen of my own work. And when I am seeing that, I'm like, it tells the story so well. And I'm glad to have been a smidgen of the kind of like, here's some other, future ideas for it. And so I thank you.
And yeah, thank you for being a part of it.
Of course. Bring me back. Let's go. Let's do more to Winnipeg.
Cool. Yeah.